Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and your number one source for daily Blues content. I'm Josh Hyman.
And I'm Thomas Welch.
And we got an action-packed episode for you guys today. The Jack Eichel sweepstakes had been relatively quiet for a couple of days until all of a sudden this morning we got trade packages coming through left and right. Huge rumors involving St. Louis's own, not the Blues' own, unfortunately, but St. Louis's own Matthew Tkachuk, and just huge rumors. So that's going to be a majority of today's episode. And then at the end, once we're done talking about that, we're going to be previewing tonight's St. Louis Blues versus LA Kings game. But I have a feeling we're going to be spending a whole lot of this time talking about the Matthew Tkachuk / Jack Eichel rumors. Before we get into that, I just want to thank anybody who is making us their first listen of the day. Now, I know some of you guys are watching on YouTube, and that's great. We love that. But also, there's a huge chunk of you guys that are watching us in the mornings on your way to work or your way to school, whatever it may be. And we appreciate that. That's why we make these short, condensed episodes for you guys. So, yeah, thank you for making us your first listen. But without further ado, Tommy, I know you're excited about this. Rumors came out today that not only are the Calgary Flames and the Las Vegas Golden Knights the finalists for Jack Eichel, we got an actual rumored trade package. Now, I need to pull this up because
I got it pulled up.
Oh, you got it pulled up? All right,
Weeks,
give it to me.
Big man Kevin Weeks today at 4:30. Right as people are getting off work, you're about to max out, relax, hang out with the family, eat some dinner, and then boom, you just get hit like an absolute linebacker, blindsided across
Left
the middle
hook.
of the field. Kevin Weeks drops from the sky for all asking. My understanding is the NHL Flames have Tkachuk, who is a future potential captain, an upcoming first-round pick, a former first-round pick, and 2 prospects in the Eichel sweepstakes with the Buffalo Sabres. So, first of all, a lot to unpack there. We're going to get into this a little bit later, but I think if I'm the Buffalo Sabres and I hear Matthew Tkachuk is involved in a trade, I'd probably stop at a 1-for-1. Given everything that's happened throughout the course of this offseason with how difficult it seemed like it's been to move Jack Eichel and finding the right partner. He's coming off surgery. Going to be a little bit of ground to make up there, but Matthew Tkachuk is that same kind of superstar talent that you can build a franchise around. So having him involved in this deal just absolutely blows my mind. And if I'm the Sabres, I'm taking it all day, every day. I know there's a little bit of talk that it could potentially be a bluff by the Flames to just kind of get Vegas to hang their hat up and say, all right, we can't match that. We don't have the capability to head and have them. And then maybe potentially a different trade comes out. But I think from a Blues standpoint, if Matthew Tkachuk is going to the Buffalo Sabres and they're expecting him to sign an extension long-term, 5 years, 6 years, it's just not going to happen. And I think because of the package, you're including a first-round pick, a former first-round pick, and 2 prospects. I don't think the Flames are expecting him to sign an extension in Buffalo, and I'm not so sure that Buffalo will be expecting him to sign an extension there either. Now, maybe they accept the trade and do expect him to, and it doesn't happen, but I think if I'm Matthew Tkachuk, I'm going to play my cards going to free agency and taking my pick of the litter of where I want to go, and that's potentially where the Blues come in because a certain sniper who doesn't want to be on the team anymore. Maybe he still wants to be on the team, but he did request a trade in the offseason. If Matthew Tkachuk goes through restricted free agency, the next year he'll be a UFA, and Vladimir Tarasenko at the same time, creating the perfect harmony for the Blues and the hometown hero, Matthew Tkachuk, to come home, and we can welcome him with open arms. That's my take for the day, and I'm going to stick to it because I'm way too excited right now. I don't need you to bring me down.
All right.
Bring me down, Josh.
I hate to do this, but you are kind of sounding a little off your rocker. And that's just because
bring me back to earth. Then.
Okay, I do not disagree that the potential for a future Matthew Tkachuk Blues reunion, this helps. Knowing that the Flames aren't ready to offer him an 8-year deal as a restricted free agent and have his UFA status come when he's closer to 30 years old. It does bode well for the future potential of that. But to think that how much has to happen? Well, Matthew Tkachuk has to either get traded to the Sabres or stay with the Flames and then only sign a 1-year deal for whatever reason, because in the history of RFAs, there has been pretty much zero precedent for someone of Matthew Tkachuk's caliber signing only a 1-year deal. If it is going to be a short bridge deal like that, it's most likely going to be in the 2-3 year range, just in terms of Tkachuk's best interest. You never really want to sign a 1-year deal like that, just in terms of injuries. And just guaranteed money. It's just very rare that something like that happens. So the whole Tarasenko angle, I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. But I am just giving you a bit of a hard time, because I do agree that this bodes well for a Blues Tkachuk reunion. I don't think the Tarasenko angle is necessarily how it would happen. I think those two factors are independent of each other, because, like I said, it just doesn't match up with Tkachuk's timeline. The only way Tkachuk is a free agent, unrestricted free agent, is if he signs a 1-year deal with either the Flames or the Sabres if this trade happens. And in my opinion,
about,
that's
like,
just very,
arbitration?
very unlikely.
Arbitration is an RFA. I'm just saying.
Okay.
The wild card.
Okay.
If they don't agree on a number, and knowing Matthew Tkachuk, I played baseball with him when I was like 6, so we're good buddies. No, but like from what I can tell from Matthew Tkachuk and kind of with the contract negotiations that have or haven't happened with the Flames, I'm not sure that they would be anywhere close on his opinion of himself and values himself as a player. So I could see them being way off on numbers, going to arbitration, getting a 1 year in that regard instead of a bridge deal. But I do think even in the event, you're talking about a lot of things have to happen, and I agree, but even in the event that Matthew Tkachuk doesn't get traded to the Buffalo Sabres, this is telling that the Flames are potentially looking to move Matthew Tkachuk, or at least they're willing to offers about him. And if you remember, it sounded like the Blues were kind of knocking on the door about Gaudreau, and we're probably talking about Tkachuk in that same conversation because we were talking about him all off season long. And it sounded like the Flames had a little bit of interest in Vladimir Tarasenko at that time, but obviously he wasn't playing. He was coming off an injury, he wasn't playing the hockey that he is now. So I think if you give them a longer timeline and a bigger sample size of Tarasenko experience, of where he's at as a hockey player right now and what he can offer the Calgary Flames, you could potentially cut out Buffalo as a middleman, go straight to the Flames and say, hey, you're having problems with Matthew Tkachuk, which I had a guy in my comments spill a little bit of tea and say that.
Let's save that for segment 2, Tom.
Okay, we'll save it for segment 2. We'll save it for segment 2. But there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot more going on than just they're not seeing eye to eye with Matthew Tkachuk. So, and it's obviously the Blues aren't seeing eye to eye with Vladimir Tarasenko because he requested a trade. So it could be one of those trades that works out for both teams. But like I said, you could cut out Buffalo as the middleman, go straight to them in the offseason or whenever that time frame looks like, and potentially Matthew Tkachuk could come to us that way as well.
Yeah, I again, like I said, I was just busting your chops a little bit with the whole. It is a bit of a reach, but with the St. Louis connection, with the Tkachuk connection, if the dominoes do fall in place and Tkachuk is looking at unrestricted free agency in 2 years' time, I would put all my money on the St. Louis Blues without a doubt. But that being said, before we get into the big sort of rumor hot take, how realistic are these reports, in Tommy's comments? Before we get into that, I want to tell you guys about a brand new sponsor, and that is Shopify. In case you did not know, Shopify is a complete commerce platform that helps you start, grow, and manage a business. It's a subscription-based service software, and it allows anyone to set up and grow an online store to sell their products. Shopify store owners can also sell in physical locations using Shopify Point of Sale, which is an app and accompanying hardware. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and completely stay informed. Personally, I love how Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed. From down the street to around the globe, Shopify powers over 1.7 million businesses from first sale to full scale, reaching customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integration and apps from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. So go to shopify.com/lockedonnhl, all lowercase, for a free 14-day free trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnhl right now. Shopify.com/lockedonnhl. And before we get back into the action, got to tell you guys about a classic sponsor of ours, and that is Built Bar. With Thanksgiving right around the corner, I cannot stop thinking about all the delicious desserts. But maybe you want a dessert that is yummy but isn't so full of calories and sugar, which is the perfect time for Built Bar. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. You can feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories, and that's on the low end. And most Built Bars only have 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar, with plenty of protein. You can replace a coconut cream pie with a coconut Built Bar. Or if you want to pass on that raspberry pie, go for Tommy's favorite raspberry cheesecake Built Bar. Lots of good flavors to replace any pie. And they're all covered in 100% chocolate, so they're delicious. New surprises all month. Limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly. So check the site often. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Tommy, I know you're excited to talk about it. I don't know how much weight I put in it, but there was an interesting reply to your tweet, and I'm curious if you'd like to share with the class.
Yeah, so I've known this guy probably close to a year now. Canadian boy, he's a buddy of mine. But he said that he heard through the grapevine, being close and some family friends with players on the Calgary Flames, that some players went up to the coach individually. I don't know if it was recently, maybe this offseason, and
it was
asked
at the beginning of the season.
at the beginning of the season and asked the coach and the staff to not chuck the captain. So, as Josh said, kind of, I don't really know. Like I said, heard it through the grapevine, heard it from a person who heard it from a person. But I think if I'm the Calgary Flames, and it's kind of what we talked about with Vince Dunn too. It's like we didn't want to see him go for nothing. And obviously Matthew Tkachuk is that's top tier talent in the NHL. You really don't want to see a guy like that go for nothing. It's the same thing that the problem that Buffalo's have with Jack Eichel. They don't want to get fleeced in a trade just because the guy wants out of there. They want to get a return that's worthy of Jack Eichel. And I think that's why they held off so long. But if I'm the St. Louis Blues, I'm seeing that. And like I said, I think that's an avenue for them to work a Vladimir Tarasenko trade. And here's another reason why I think Doug Armstrong would not only be willing to do this, but I think he would place a lot of weight in this kind of transaction. We talked about it this offseason, right? Is Blues are getting older. There's a lot of, like, Bozak's getting up there. He's like mid-30s. David Perron's getting up there. He's like 33 now, I believe. So obviously we brought in Buchnevich, brought in Saad. That's great. Get a little bit younger, get guys in their prime. But we do still have some older guys on this team. Look at Robert Thomas, who lived with Matthew Tkachuk. You look at Jordan Kyrou, who is a young phenom. You look at Pavel Buchnevich, who is 26 in the prime of his career, a scoring talent and plays well defensively. Chuck fits perfectly on this roster in terms of skill, in terms of the system that we run, in terms of it's his hometown, but also his age, I think, is something that would be very attractive to Doug Armstrong, because you're losing a guy in Vladimir Tarasenko who meant so much to this organization. You're going to want to bring in a guy to help ease that pain. And I don't think there's anyone better in the National Hockey League right now who could ease that pain more than Matthew Tkachuk.
All right, I have a bit of another devil's advocate card to throw in there, and Greg Kane asked in chat whether or not he thinks Tkachuk would sign in Buffalo long term or still be a free agent. That's sort of all we talked about in the first segment. But another aspect of it, another sort of something that I hadn't really considered until you were talking just now. What if Buffalo gets Tkachuk back in a package for Eichel, and then pressure comes and says, hey, you just lost a franchise player. You better make sure that trade does something. And they go out and they throw way too much money at Matthew Tkachuk because they can't just have their centerpiece walk away empty-handed, or, walk away and the team's left empty-handed with a couple of picks that you hope you hit on. What if Buffalo goes out there and throws 8 years, $10.5 million at Matthew Tkachuk because they need something to say, hey, we didn't lose Eichel for nothing? I just think if this rumor is true and there is a trade in the next few days involving both Matthew Tkachuk and Jack Eichel, oh my Lord, are we going to have so much to talk about over the next 8 months, year and a half. There are so many moving parts if that is the case. That is an unprecedented trade for NHL standards. 2 young superstars moving teams. Not to mention if there's picks and prospects coming from Calgary as well, you're looking at like the biggest trade in NHL history in terms of the amount of quality pieces being moved around. So as much as I would love to sit here and say, oh, how does this affect the Blues? This is league-wide insane in terms of the scale. If we see a trade that is Matthew Tkachuk plus a future first, plus a former first-round pick player, plus whatever, that is
prospects,
the biggest trade in NHL history, at least in my memory, in terms of the amount of quality and quantity that is being moved.
Yeah, I think if you're to kind of touch on, do you think he signs long term in Buffalo again? I still just think if you're Matthew Tkachuk, even if they throw the book at you, right? Which I could see them doing that just because they'd be desperate to not lose the guy that they got for Eichel. But at the same time, isn't that the problem they ran into with Eichel? Was paying him so much money that they couldn't really build around him those depth pieces that kind of lead you. I think.
Yeah, but one of the Sabres showed an ability to learn from their mistakes.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe they're learning from their mistakes is just not ever trading with us. So that could be another avenue. Cut out the middleman and go to the Calgary Flames. I'm not going to let this die, Josh. Matthew Tkachuk will be here one day, and I'm going to be following it.
Look. This we're gonna wake up tomorrow, and there's going to be a 4-team trade. Tarasenko to the Sabres, Eichel to the Flames, Tkachuk to the Blues.
Give me all the chaos.
And and I'm gonna look silly, and this clip is gonna be on Twitter. Look at Josh. He said this trade was dumb, and then it happened. But no, you know what? If Jack Eichel gets traded for Matthew Tkachuk and picks, then I have no idea what to expect for the league, because that just changes the precedent of players getting moved around. It would start looking like the NBA in terms of players getting asking out in huge trade packages. Oh man, it is.
Well,
hypotheticals.
Here's the thing too, right? Like, let's separate Matthew Tkachuk and Vladimir Tarasenko for a second, right? It felt like a lot of this offseason was spent comparing the similarities between the scenario that was happening with Jack Eichel and the scenario that was happening with Vladimir Tarasenko, because they were both kind of disgruntled about the way that their injuries were handled. If this haul is any similarity to what we could expect from a healthy Vladimir Tarasenko, and I don't, because obviously Jack Eichel is a generational guy who's still in his prime, and Vladimir Tarasenko is kind of a little bit older, more of like an old style of hockey guy, but he still has an absolutely sick wrister, and he's looking like vintage Vladdy right now. So I don't think he's going to warrant the same haul by any stretch of the imagination. We're not going to go out and get Brady Tkachuk because we trade Vladimir Tarasenko. But I do think in hindsight, it might have been the best play, and we talked about this a little bit towards the end of the offseason too, for Doug Armstrong onto this guy, because it doesn't seem like it's affected the team chemistry or the synergy. He hasn't caused problems in the locker room. If people are thinking about it in the back of their heads, they're not letting it affect their play. And he's going to maximize the potential return for Tarasenko, which is, I think we can all get on board that if we do want to see Vladimir Tarasenko moved, we don't want to get fleeced in the trade. I would love to see a piece come back that's going to help us win now, but also potentially in a couple years down the road. And I think with Jack Eichel, like I said, getting the haul that he potentially could be getting, it's just going to raise the stock and the value for Tarasenko, especially like just taking him off the market is going to raise the market for Tarasenko. But the haul that he's getting in return too, I think teams are going to be looking around and being like, oh, so that's the asking price. Okay, maybe we need to up the ante on number 91 over here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely, as crazy as it sounds and as much crap as I'm giving you, it's an unprecedented time. So who am I to say, oh, that's crazy? Because if you had told me that there would be a trade rumor of Matthew Tkachuk and everything the Flames own for Jack Eichel, I would have told you were crazy. So who knows? Maybe your ridiculous parlay that you've crafted will hit. But if you guys want to be like Tommy and craft ridiculous parlays that hit,
It's fun.
Make me look silly and also make a bunch of money, you got to check out
Even if they're
BetOnline.
wrong, it's so much fun.
Even if they're wrong, they're so much fun. You got to check out betonline.ag. They're back and better than ever. A brand new web interface for the start of the basketball season and hockey season, plus more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball, football, and hockey action this season. Head over to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage for all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. That's betonline.ag, where the game starts. And when we return, we will use the limited time left in this episode to
we play
try to
hockey
wrap
tonight,
up.
don't we?
Yeah. So when we get back, we go for a rapid fire locked on player of the game. And hopefully we don't continue to either embarrass ourselves or make great predictions, but don't go anywhere. All right, Tommy, we do play hockey tonight. And unfortunately, Matthew Tkachuk won't be suiting up for us just yet. But there are plenty of other players on the St. Louis Blues that could have a big performance tonight. Kind of a weird spot. Offense was really, really hot for a while, and then all of a sudden offense quiets down and the defense dominates, and then they take a couple of days off. So we've seen the best of the Blues offense, we've seen the best of the Blues defense, we've seen the best of the Blues goaltending. We haven't seen it all kind of at once yet, but a couple of days off to digest, to take in the first 7 games. And that being said, Tommy, who is your pick for the locked on player of the game tonight and why?
All right, so I'm going to go off of my solo episode here for a little bit, Josh. So on my solo, I talked about Ivan Barbashev, the similarities he has to Oscar Sundqvist in the improved season that he's been having so far. A fun little stat that I threw out there on the episode, Josh. Ivan Barbashev has more goals this season than Jordan Kyrou. How's that? 3 goals. Jordan Kyrou has 2. Jordan Kyrou has a lot of assists, but I think Ivan Barbashev is playing fantastic hockey. I think another point that I brought up was not to be you shouldn't be any sense of the imagination about Buchnevich and Saad, because we're 8 games into the season, but they got 2 points right now. I think at some point they're going to turn it on and that line is going to start producing. I think I would like to say it's going to be sometime on this road trip, and I would love to say it's going to be game 1, but I'm not confident in that. So I think, actually, you know what? We're going straight conspiracy theories podcast. I'm going above and beyond my predictions of Matthew Tkachuk coming to the Blues. So I might as well go above and beyond. And I'm going to take Pavel Buchnevich as my locked on player of the game. I think he's due. I think the suspension kind of threw a wrench in his plans to kind of start the season. Obviously, dude got wires crossed and headbutted somebody. You don't love to see that. But he got brought onto this team for a reason. He's a stud defensively, and he's an absolute stud offensively. He figures it out, and his line figures it out because Barshev, Thomas, and Tarasenko got moved up to the second line. Doesn't really mean much for the Blues, but I think if you're a Boone, you were on that second line, and now you're moved down to the third. Just optics-wise, it's a kick in the pants for you, right? You'd be like, hey, I should be on the second line. I'm going to get it going here, play with confidence, and pot a couple goals at the same time. So I think Buchnevich as my locked-on player of the game.
Okay.
All things considered, I'm going with that.
Okay, I like that. I think that's definitely a solid pick. I think Buchnevich sort of was looking really hot early on, and then the suspension, like you said, definitely sort of slowed that momentum a little bit. But he should be looking to rebound for sure. Let's see.
Richard
Kane
Clay
asked
agrees
Chad-
with me, my guy.
Yep, Richard Clay agrees with you. Greg Kane asked, is Huso starting tonight? I believe Binnington is starting.
Yeah.
Based on the
Huso
lines.
It's on COVID protocol still.
Yeah.
So
we
we
might
do
see
have a
Joe Hofer
back-to-back
tomorrow night.
potentially. But I tweeted out earlier that I would have expected to see him in this game just because I think the Sharks are kind of more menacing than the Kings are right now. So I think if we were going to see Hofer in this back-to-back, it would be this game. But I mean, it's Craig Berube, and you never really know with him.
Mm-hmm.
And we could see Jordan Binnington in both games as well. So
Yep. That being said, I think I'm going to take sort of a similar route to you in terms of my pick for Locked On Player of the Game, but I'm going to pick someone that is kind of, I guess, an obvious pick, but it is someone that has had a rocketed start to the this regular season. A lot better than a lot of people expected, a lot better than I expected, and that's Vladimir Tarasenko. He's got a 6-game point streak, I believe, has looked the best that he's looked in years with the St. Louis Blues, and he's playing with Ivan Barbashev, one of the only Blues players I have ever seen Vladimir Tarasenko hang out with off the ice in his years with the St. Louis Blues, which no knock on him, that's the Russian connection, but they've never really played together a whole lot.
they've kind of adopted Kostin into that as well. So
I'd love to see that. Exactly. So the Russian connection, it's important throughout the NHL. We've seen it many different lines, many different friendships on teams, and Tarasenko and Barbashev have been friends for a while, but they've never really played on the same line all that much. And with Barbashev getting off to the hot start that he's had, and Tarasenko getting off to the hot start that he's had, playing loose and comfortable tonight, he's getting that hat trick. I can feel it. I predicted the Binnington shutout in the Chicago game. I'm going to get a little bit crazier with the prediction.
I like it, Josh.
Trick, but he's getting a couple. Tarasenko is unleashed this year. He's going to tear up the league this year. I've been trying to hold back on my excitement, but he's looked so good. And I think tonight on the second line, I think this is his first time on the second line this season, playing with his best friend on the team, Ivan Barbashev. Oh, it's gonna be good night for the LA Kings.
You should put a 20 down on Bet Online for Vladdy to score a hattie. Yeah, I'd turn that into $400 real fast. That'd be nasty.
Maybe I'll have to do that. But that being said, I think that's all the time we have for you guys today. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to everyone who tuned in on YouTube, Greg Kane, Richard Clay, and anyone else who didn't chat. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube. If you want to join them and watch on YouTube, comment live like they did, have your name read on the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Locked On Blues, and hit that notification bell. That way, whenever we go live, you'll get notified. You can hop in the live stream, chat with us. It's a great time. We love it. But if you're still listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button there. That way you can be notified whenever we do post our episodes. Leave a review if you're feeling so kind. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Locked On Blues. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL. Follow Tommy at TWelcher15. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, let's go.